Hello, welcome to Money and Margaritas. Today I'm interviewing my beautiful grandmother. And today we're just going to ask her a few questions and see kind of how she prepared for retirement and see kind of what her do's and don'ts were to hopefully help some of you and inspire you to prepare for retirement. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been retired for several years and through several bouts of cancer, surviving, and now I live in a retirement community in Lincoln, California. I have a lot of fun, I have a lot of friends, we play a lot of cards, and I enjoy life.
All right, so the first question we've got for her is, when did she start saving for retirement?
Well, actually I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. I made a lot of good things and a lot of mistakes, but I didn't start really saving for retirement until I was 50. Once I moved to Orange County, I knew it was time that I had to. I didn't have all that many years left before retirement, so I needed to start saving. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle during those times.
Okay, so saving later in life, not starting when you're 18 or not really, doing the perfect things from 18 to 50, probably had to make up some time. What did that look like?
I did have to make up some time, and it meant sacrificing. I first had to make sure that I had a decent salary so that I could put away as much money as possible. I made all of the maximum contributions to IRAs, to 459s, to my pension that I could possibly make. So it meant that I had to sacrifice. It was, I had to be frugal. I couldn't do everything that I necessarily wanted to do. I couldn't go on some trips. Even though my salary was pretty darn good, it was over six figures, I still had to struggle and sacrifice in order to make up for the time that I lost.
All right, so you mentioned that you had to have pretty good income.
Yes.
So I take it, from frugality or income, your focus was more so on income at that point because you had to make up some time. You mentioned that.
Actually, it was a combination of both. It was
Okay.
frugality along with increased income. So I did everything that I could to make my worth valuable enough that I could command the income that I had.
And negotiating, is there any tips or tricks to negotiating a good income?
Making sure I always, every year, wrote down all of my accomplishments, made sure that I kept track of all those, and when I went in to negotiate salary, I brought all that with me. I laid it out for them. Actually, I gave it to them in advance, so if they had any questions or they disagreed with what I was saying, they could bring it up at that time. But I always got the salary that I asked for.
Yeah, she shared some stories with me on how she's just really good at, having confidence, working hard. Definitely work ethic is important, but having that confidence to ask what you're worth. I think a lot of, especially women, are scared to ask for, the salary that they're worth. And I just encourage you not to be so scared to ask for what you're
Right.
worth. I think that women have came a long way in the last, 10 years and maybe a little bit longer than that, but in getting that, but I just still encourage you not to devalue yourself and definitely,
Absolutely.
All right, so you had shared a story with me about how you were making about $20 an hour and then you lost your job. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I lost my job because it was my husband and I got a divorce and he got the business and I had no income. I was on unemployment, making very little. And I moved to Fresno. I was there looking at jobs, going through the paper, looking for jobs, trying to seek employment. And I didn't feel like I was really qualified for anything because I had worked my own business for a few years, and my other prior experience was a ways back. So I was looking, and everything seemed to be these $5 an hour jobs. And I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to survive on $5 an hour? How am I going to mentally make that work for me? So I decided I needed to see a psychologist. So I went to this psychologist and she said to me, what field would you like to get into? And I said, well, I think I'd like to try something new, maybe in medicine, because I've never done that before and there's a lot of baby boomers coming up, so I think that's going to be a growing field. I said, but all I can find are entry job levels at $5 an hour. And she said, well, don't think of it as income, as your income. Think of it as you're going back to school and they're going to pay you $5 an hour to go to school. So I thought, geez, that's a good thought. You know, that really makes me feel good about doesn't make me feel horrible about getting $5 an hour. It makes me feel okay about it. So I went home that day and I thought, I'm going to call a few of my old colleagues when I was working in government years before I had my own business. I'm going to call them and see if there's anything available. So I called a friend of mine in Oakland, and I said, hey, if there's any jobs available, if you need any part-time person, or you need somebody to come in under contract and work for a short period of time, let me know. So I'll keep that in mind, thanks. Hung up, and that was it, and I was feeling pretty good. And the next day, he called me back and said, I went to the doctor's yesterday afternoon, and I found out I have cancer. And you'd be a perfect replacement for me. Can you send me your resume so I can show it to the other board members? I said, absolutely. So I quickly created a new updated resume, and sent that to him. And he called me back a few hours later, said I showed it to the chairman of the board, and they're very interested. They would like you to come in for an interview on Monday. But the one thing they want to know is, what do you want as far as an hourly wage? I said, at least $30 an hour. And so he says, okay, I'll let him know. Well, actually the next morning called me back and he says, they don't want to even interview you, they want to hire you. So report to work on Monday. So that's kind of it. The rest is
awesome.
kind of history.
So that's the thing, like, I mean, here she was about to take a job for 5, or at least kind of talking herself into that mode. And what we talked about is that, you know, it's not, people don't get by wanting, they get by seeking. And so if you go out looking for what you want in life, and are confident and know that you deserve it, I think it comes to you. So I think that's definitely an important lesson in that story. So.
Absolutely.
All right, so what is the dumbest thing that you did financially coming up?
Well, the dumbest thing I did, all my life I've always put away money, either for retirement or for savings. From the time I had my first job, I always made sure that I put away at least 15%. And any raise that I got, took 15% out of that. I always found a way to have it taken out of my check so I never had to see it. Otherwise, I probably would have spent it. I also used to use, when I was younger, the sock drawer, where I put rolled money up and started saving it in the sock drawer. The dumbest thing I really ever did was, I had a good retirement. I had worked in government for probably 8 or 9 years, and I had accrued $25,000 in retirement. But at that time, it equated out to a salary that if I continued there, it would have been a great salary. But I decided that, I have a few bills, and people told me, it's no big deal. Oh, and also I had free health care for the rest of my life. And I cashed in my retirement. I got $25,000, which I paid off some debt, I will say. I was able to do that with that $25,000. And at that time, health care was very inexpensive. So people said, you can give up the health care. It's just a few bucks a month. Well, then turning 50, I found out it's not a few bucks a month. Health care became expensive and more expensive. And I decided at the time, I had a government job in Orange County, and when I started at 50, and I needed to make sure my retirement was going to be something beneficial. So I had to buy back those 8 years. That $25,000 cost me $160,000 to buy back. It took me 10 years, but I bought it back.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, so I know you have a new paid for in cash car now, or at least you bought it from the dealer, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Now, when you were planning for your retirement, were you buying new cars then, or were they used? What would that look like?
Oh no, they were used. And I always searched out the best deal. In fact, I bought a really nice Mercedes, few years old, but I got a really good deal on it because it was a salvage car. And I took it to my Mercedes mechanic, and he said it was in excellent condition. So I truly enjoyed that. I've always bought used cars. Never had a new car other than years and years and years before I actually had one. So no, I've always bought used cars until I retired.
And one thing that I know I get from her and my mother, I know she's watching too, is consumer reviews. Like when we buy stuff of value, I know that the three of us all really like investigate cars, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a washer and dryer. If it's $3,000, we know what the best washer and dryer is. If it's a car, I know what cars are reliable, which cars are good on gas, bad on gas, which
Safe.
ones are safe, most likely to be in the shop or most likely not to be in the shop. Like, I'm way more educated than I believe most people when they're shopping for a vehicle. I think a lot of people just buy a car. They just show up in the dealer, they get the loan, they get approved, they pick the color they like, and they roll out. I know that I get that from her, that I don't do that. I'm very investigative, and I know more about things, cars, whatever, when I buy it than probably the salesman selling it. So, all right, this next question is sponsored by QVC. No, it's not. But are you frugal?
Amazon.
Yeah. Are you frugal today?
No. I have good intentions, but I'm not very frugal. But I almost own my own house. I could, if I wanted to, pay it off. I own my own car. I pay off any charge cards that I have every month. So I basically have no debt. Because I saved when I was 50 to 67 when I retired, I'm able to spend today. Now I don't go crazy, trust me. I don't go out and,
She kind of goes crazy.
No, I don't go crazy. I get a few things that I really enjoy, and I want to live life comfortably. I saved and worked hard so that I could do things when I retire, and now I can. But I do have to pick and choose. I can't do everything that I want or have everything.
Yeah.
But I have things that make me comfortable.
Yeah. And we mentioned the consumer reviews, but I think both of us too, we value quality sometimes. So there are certain things that we do buy that are not the cheapest on the market. I know that like Bose speakers, I like Bose speakers because they're good quality. And so I think that I just want to relay that message because frugal and cheap and always buying the cheapest isn't exactly aligned with my personal thoughts and goals. Now, we're very frugal in other areas, but sometimes there's a time and a place to get nice.
I'd like to comment on that. He's not frugal when it comes to Bose speakers. I have cheap speakers, but I have a car that has every option available.
She has the limited. So we all have our own things, right? So some things she's more frugal on, and some things I'm more frugal on. And sometimes it's okay to spend and enjoy your money, but she worked really hard to get to that point.
Right.
So, all right. The last question for you is: do you have anything that you'd like to tell young people today on planning for retirement?
It's never too early to start planning for retirement. Put money away for retirement and always make sure you have an emergency fund. It will help you throughout your life. I made a huge mistake when I cashed in my retirement because it would have been a lot better for me to not cash that in and to have that time credit applied to my final retirement. So start young. It's cheaper when you start young than when you start at 50. Not impossible at 50, but it is easier if you start young.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Comment below if you have anything, questions for us or anything. Definitely like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel to see more videos. Thank you so much for being on my video. Love you.
I love you too.
And thank you for following.